the symptoms of dyslexia. The second student, Louis, who had dyspraxia, his writing was completely unreadable. And for an adult who is presented with irreadable writing from a child, the adult automatically thinks that he must be having difficulties at school. He was showing the physical symptoms of a child that was having difficulty learning. His marks at school were suffering and were not representing his full potential. It was recommended that he be put into private school. And together with his parents, we elaborated a strategy so that he followed a private schooling and was then put back into public school, where he could follow a normal education in normal classes and had to have the same opportunities as others. The gentleman here then asked about the idea of always wanting to be like the others. At Mensa, they have a lot of parents who will come and say, I'm not interested in this idea of precociousness, I want to be like everybody else. And how do we manage this idea? And then Claire answered that we have to work with the idea of the fact that everybody is different and try to relate to the families that being intellectually precocious is like any other genetic characteristic, whether it be having blue eyes or brown hair, for example. And the fact that you are intelligent, the mere fact of just recognizing this intelligence is not enough. We need to accept who we are and what our needs are. And just because we are more intelligent does not mean that we are better. We need to work on supporting people in their relationships and their representation, so that, and we need to work on everybody being able to fulfill their potential.
Moi, ça me concerne pas, ces histoires de précoce, ça concerne les autres, mais moi, je suis pas du tout concerné. Comment vous faites avec ça?
Eh bien, on travaille plus particulièrement, on va s'axer sur le fait de la différence, c'est-à-dire qu'on essaye d'échanger avec la famille sur le fait de mesurer 1,80 m ou d'avoir des yeux bleus. C'est une donnée génétique. Et donc, il y a des constantes génétiques qui sont après améliorées, stimulées, entraînées ou non par l'environnement, qui sont un fait. Et donc, et on essaye vraiment d'axer et de dire que c'est bien d'avoir un cerveau qui marche bien, mais ça ne suffit pas dans la vie. D'abord, ça peut être gênant d'être décalé et de ne pas le savoir. Donc, ce qui est important, c'est de savoir qui on est et quels sont nos besoins. On le décline sous forme de besoins. Et puis, au-delà de dire j'ai un bon cerveau, ça ne veut pas dire je suis meilleur. Et donc, on va axer l'accompagnement sur l'importance de la relation, sur l'importance de la représentation du monde, ce qui a du sens, ce qui a de la valeur, du partage. On a beau avoir un gros cerveau, on n'a que 2 bras. Et on va travailler plutôt en orientant autour de l'épanouissement du potentiel et la prise en compte. Il faut le prendre en compte, mais ça ne suffit pas pour réussir et pour être heureux.
Et vous parlez... Oui,
oui, merci.
Ah oui, on était partis, nous. Hein. Alors, sur les profils qu'on peut être amené à rencontrer, la précocité est déjà une difficulté en soi parce que le décalage est important et entraîne d'autres décalages. On ne va peut-être pas... Aujourd'hui, on échangera si vous le souhaitez, mais je vais peut-être me centrer sur les difficultés associées.
Precociousness in itself can bring about difficulties. Precociousness is a gap between between schooling and what the child is capable of. And we're going to focus on the difficulties in precociousness. I've already spoken about dyslexia and dyspraxia and dysgraphia. Also, another subject that we could talk about is attention deficit disorders. And this is a specific functional problem and it is very difficult to identify if it is not accompanied by a certain level of hyperactivity. Hyperactivity is a motor instability which could be described as a gift or a problem, depending on how you look at it. Today there are many children that had high attention deficit disorders that have gone into very respected professions. There are professions that need certain competencies that not everybody has, but in school, attention deficit disorder can pose a problem when the teaching pace is not really respected. There is a problem with memory in terms of attention deficit disorder. And today we can provide a lot of support and advice. The problem comes with identifying attention deficit disorders if it is not accompanied with hyperactivity. These are children that are academically disinterested, and it is often present amongst boys. 3/4 of children with attention deficit disorder are boys. It is a problem of memory saturation, and they have a very short attention span. So what do we do? What are these children told at school? Well, they are told to concentrate and to listen. This is very difficult for them. With intellectually precocious children, there is also a problem of motivation, and this complicates the diagnosis further. It is like they are trying to cram in a lot of information into a small space. Now, is there any kind of mechanism whereby they can empty some memory space in order to take in more? There isn't, but visual support always helps. And information should be given in small chunks of time, with simplified notes, and this can compensate for the attention deficit disorder. There is also some chemicals in the brain that may be lacking with children with attention deficit disorder, such as dopamine and serotonin. This might be a consequence of their high potential or not. In any case, we need to reduce the amount of information given in a certain amount of time to set the pace. And in terms of having a visual support for the information given, we now have the PowerPoint up and working.
Faut un petit peu former et donner les éléments pédagogiques à l'enfant et à l'enseignante. On arrive grosso modo à compenser quand même. On ne sait pas non plus, il faut que l'enfant soit acteur. La problématique, c'est qu'il y a quand même réellement une problématique organique. C'est-à-dire que les substances probablement qui sont en jeu sont déficitaires dans certains lieux du cerveau. On pense notamment impliquer le déficit en dopamine ou en sérotonine. Alors est-ce que ces blocages sont la conséquence d'un haut potentiel qui n'est pas intégré et qui fait qu'il y a une incidence sur le plan organique parce qu'on est sur une zone de réactivité? Est-ce qu'elle est vraiment liée à une problématique pure organique qui va avoir par contre-coup une incidence sur la pédagogie et entraîner un cycle un peu infernal qu'il faut absolument casser? Il faut réduire la durée des apprentissages aussi, leur permettre de faire des pauses. Il y a un rythme pédagogique, alors quand en plus ils sont précoces, c'est un peu...
So as we're a bit pressed for time, I'm just going to summarize the points here. I wanted to go further into the different modes of teaching and how children are taught in the United States. As we can see from the different stages, we started off by concentrating more on the therapeutic and the clinical side of learning. It was thought that children who were having learning difficulties, it was due to their social environment and that they had deficient social environment, and there was no consideration to the neuropsychological side aspect and the fact that their brains simply do not work in the same way. It was thought that it was due to the parents and that the parents needed to provide a more stimulating environment. Towards the year 2000, we started to integrate the neuropsychological aspect and to realize that gifted children's brains work in a different way. They may be more advanced intellectually and develop in a different way, but this precocious, they are more aware, and this cannot be perceived through tests. Their brains work in a simultaneous way, with all of the modules active at the same time. And it is this neurobiology that has led us to believe that the cerebral function is different with gifted children. And it is not because that they are precocious that they are better. So the criteria, we also need to take into consideration the emotional and the relationship capabilities of the children. To understand their social environment and their life in general. They may be intellectually advanced, but they may encounter difficulties in different areas, and all the types of intelligence need to be considered. They will most likely have problems relating to other children. However, if we put them in an environment where they meet other intellectually precocious children, they can create social links. If they are given the appropriate environment, they can develop in a better way. And then I will continue to talk more about the American model.
Et donc on les prive de cette possibilité de fonctionner, alors que si on les met avec des groupes d'enfants qui sont un peu plus proches de leur mode intellectuel de fonctionnement, ils peuvent alors créer des liens sociaux. Donc l'important, c'est pas de se placer sous l'angle de la surstimulation, c'est de dire, si on leur donne un environnement adéquat, ils peuvent alors globalement mieux se développer. Voilà, donc je passe sur ces 3 points, je laisse la traductrice faire son travail et puis je reprends pour le modèle américain.